Hi, guys. Welcome back. We are Inside the Trenches. This is a show where we talk about what's going on inside the NFL, and we like to take a deeper look at everything and going behind the numbers and seeing what's going on in the sport of football. So I am Lenny Ventimiglia. You can follow me on Twitter at Lenny_football.
And I'm Noah Adamek. You can follow me on Twitter at Noah Adamek.
And we are very excited to be back in the studio today, guys. A lot of good football this weekend. Noah, I was really excited watching that Louisville and Clemson game. Did you get to check it out?
I watched parts of it, and you let me in on that key play at the end where
I was so upset.
apparently a lot of people were upset.
How long was I ranting about that before we went on the air?
Probably at least 10 minutes.
I can't even get into it. We'd end up wasting way too much time if I stuck around and talked about that the entire time. So we're going to focus on the NFL today. We're going to talk a little bit about the Vikings quarterback situation, talk about some of these corners and wide receivers around the leagues that are doing really well, give our quarter of the season awards so far through the NFL, who we think's played the best at offense, defense, some of the rookies, and what's surprised us around the league. We're going to take a look at the Colts and Bears matchup. So you guys get two game previews this week with Colts and Bears, and then we're going to give you our game of the week towards the end. So we're going to kick it off right now. Noah and I wanted to have a little debate to start the show. What do we think the Vikings should do with their quarterback situation? Do we think they should stick with Sam Bradford or Teddy Bridgewater when he comes back? Noah, what do you think?
Well, first of all, Bridgewater is going to be out for this year, like the rest of the year. So I think that's a key thing that we really need to address at first. But for me, I think next year when Bridgewater is available to come back, he should get his starting role back. And I looked at it from overall, like throughout both of their careers, more than just like their time in Minnesota, which Teddy has only been in Minnesota, but Bradford just this year has been in Minnesota. I look at it this way. Teddy Bridgewater, in just 2 years in the league, has one playoff appearance, which he lost because of Blair Walsh.
True.
Sam Bradford in, I'm not sure how many years, 6, 7?
2010, so 6.
6 years. 0 playoff appearances.
Well, okay. let me refute some of those points first before I get into my argument for Sam Bradford. The teams he played with were awful, with no weapons around him pretty much at all.
Okay.
He has very bad injury concerns throughout his career, tearing his ACL multiple times. I understand that. Teddy Bridgewater, you said they lost because of Blair Walsh. They scored 9 points in that game. Okay. They lost also because their offense could generate literally nothing on offense. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, sure, they lost because of Blair Walsh. But Blair Walsh also lost them the game because he wasn't put in a good situation to win the game in the first place either, where every point came from his legs in the first place. So, yeah, he did lose them the game, and they put him in a situation towards the end to make a game winner, but they certainly didn't put him in a situation where they could take any pressure off his shoulders whatsoever in that game. They couldn't run, they couldn't pass, they couldn't get offense. And that's kind of the identity of that team with Bridgewater is he's almost like an Alex Smith type game manager for that team, which is just hand it off, pass when he has to, and rely on the defense to just make it so they don't have to score too many points to win. Okay. Fair or not?
That is fair. But when you say they didn't put him in a good chance to win, and they put him in a good chance to win at the end, they is Teddy Bridgewater. And yes, he didn't really play well throughout that game.
Well, Adrian Peterson as well.
True. But anyway, Bridgewater didn't play well throughout that game. I understand that. The end of the game, he led them on that game-winning drive to put them in the situation to win. I think that's something that he can do that Bradford maybe can, but I don't really see Bradford being that type of player, that type of go down the field in 2 minutes and win the game.
Right now in the 2-minute drills during this season, Bradford's only attempted 3 passes so far in 2-minute drills at all this year. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to see that from that statistical standpoint. But as the game has gone on, from the first quarter to the second quarter to the third quarter, every single quarter so far, Sam Bradford's quarterback rating has increased throughout the year so far, through 4 games. Mm-hmm. He starts like a 90 quarterback rating in the first quarter and ends with like 138 quarterback rating by the end of the fourth. Maybe that's because his teams are winning all these games and he doesn't have to do that much in the fourth quarter, but his quarterback rating is getting better as the game goes along and as he's attempting more passes. So would maybe he be able to do the same thing that Bridgewater did at the end of the game? I don't know, but his stats as of right now are telling me there's no reason to think he couldn't. Now, when I'm looking at these stats from these games, because that's kind of the way it's hard to judge, because Bridgewater's had 2 years in that offense, right? Mm-hmm. But he had Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
Bradford's had a game and a half with Adrian Peterson and 4 games total with this offense. Mm-hmm. And they have a little bit different look to the offense. And the defense right now is playing like they're in the Matrix or something like that. Like the best defense you've seen in a while. You know what I mean? They're playing like the Seahawks of 3 years ago or the Broncos of last year. That's right. That's the level this defense is playing on right now. Mm-hmm. But you have to give Bradford his props for this. He's completing almost 70% of his passes. He has 4 touchdown passes and 0 turnovers. That offense as a whole has not turned the ball over one time. No, not one fumble, not one interception through 4 games. He has a 105.5 quarterback rating, which is as good as you could ask for a guy like him with weapons that are almost non-existent on that offense. With Adrian Peterson gone, they cannot run the ball until last night. Right. They ran decent. He has a 123.5 quarterback rating in the red zone. So he's doing what he's asked or what's asked of him well through pretty much all facets of the game. And then I look at Bridgewater, his highest quarterback rating he's ever had for a season was 88.7, significantly below Bradford's 105 right now. Mm-hmm. Then again, 4 games into the season, that could be a 70 by the time the season's over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could be, but it's not right now. And that's all we can judge him off of. And I'm not going to judge him on different teams because it's like I was saying earlier, it's easier to compare apples to apples. What's happening in this same team with the same coaching staff and same weapons. Bridgewater last year only had 14 touchdowns, but he had 9 picks. You know what I mean? It's close in turnovers and touchdowns. But Bridgewater, I'll say this. He played his best football last season when his team was trailing by 1 to 8 points. So that gives some merit to what you were saying, like in that playoff game. You know, he's playing best when they're barely trailing. But the problem is he's consistently average through most situations of all games. Like, no matter what down, what quarter, he's very similar. Like, he's very consistent. Just that consistency level's below anything Bradford's averaging right now. Does that make sense?
It does. And I understand that that you don't want to, like, judge Bradford from his other teams. I understand that. It makes sense. He's not in the same system. But to me, that's a big part of playing in the NFL. You have to be able to perform throughout your career. And just some of these numbers I found interesting. Teddy Bridgewater has 40% of the passing yards Bradford has in less than half the amount of games. Stats-wise, that's 29 games for Bridgewater, 66 games for Stafford, and Bridgewater has 6,150 passing yards.
Okay.
Bradford, in 66 games, 15,509 passing yards. So Bridgewater has slightly below half as many passing yards in a little more than half the amount of games.
I get you. It's just, to me, there's something about the fact Bradford, he won a Heisman when he was in college. We know the talent is in him. You know what I mean? There's been flashes of it, like he won Rookie of the Year. You know, Bridgewater didn't come close to Rookie of the Year. You know, he won Rookie of the Year when he was in like 2010. Seems like forever ago, but yeah. Bradford has it. It just doesn't come out enough from him.
Right.
And on an offense like this where your rushing attack is not really there because, well, one of the best running backs of our lifetime isn't playing. Excuse me. Bradford's playing very well with what he's given, and they're 4-0. You know what I mean? Even if Bridgewater was playing, there's literally no way he could be playing better right now. Was he going to have a 110 quarterback rating? Probably not. His team can't have a better record. You know what I mean? They haven't turned the ball over once. He can't really be playing better unless he's just throwing 3 touchdowns a game, which isn't really in the way he plays. So it's hard to make that argument. But we were saying this before the show. Here's an interesting thought that what the Vikings could do with this quarterback situation. Bradford, as we mentioned earlier, does have an injury situation where he's hurt his ACL a few times. Now it's kind of weird because Bridgewater's done the same. You know what I mean? Yeah. So now you have almost injury concerns with both your quarterbacks. But let's say this scenario. This is Bridgewater's 3rd year.
Right.
He is under contract for next year as well, cheap. Because he was like the last pick of the first round. Or second to last pick. I think he was the last pick, though, the first round. So he's a pretty cheap rookie.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a backup quarterback cheaper than you're going to get Teddy Bridgewater.
Right.
And you're probably not going to get a backup quarterback better than Teddy Bridgewater.
Exactly.
So what if you keep him and you sign him to his 5th year deal? because that 5th-year deal isn't that expensive. It's not like you're franchise tagging the guy and having to give him like $20 million. You're not. You're just giving him a little bit more of an extension of what he was already earning from this 4-year deal that he got as a rookie. What if you sign him, because it's probably going to be a similar price tag which you're going to sign a backup quarterback for anyways. So now you have an insurance policy on Bradford for the next 2.5 years. Well, 2 years because he's not going to play this year. Bridgewater won't.
Yeah.
You have 2-year insurance policy on Bradford. If he starts playing bad, you can pull him for Bridgewater and he knows the offense. Or in 2 years from now, you could trade bait him and maybe get a first-round pick.
Yeah, and I think the trading aspect of Bridgewater can also go for Bradford.
Yeah,
they can.
It's just he's younger.
Yeah, that's true.
He had the same injuries, just he's done it less.
Right. But I think they could possibly get not what they gave up for Bradford initially.
Probably not.
But I think they'll be able to get a good amount for Bradford. Same thing with Teddy, though. I think they could get a really good amount for Teddy Bridgewater.
He's not
also
a bad quarterback.
No.
He's just a game manager. But also the thing about him, and one of the things I'll give you credit on for this argument is the way they made the offense for him was they didn't want to put pressure on him. This offense for the last 2 years has been, let's run the ball as much as we can so we don't have to make Teddy Bridgewater make any bad decisions. He can grow up on the field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can build his confidence year by year because we're not forcing him to go throw the ball 40 times a game. Because we have Adrian Peterson. Milk AP for what you have as long as you have it, and just let Bridgewater get comfortable playing football in the NFL for a couple of years before you unleash it.
Right. And I do think one thing that's interesting also, Adrian Peterson in Bridgewater's rookie year, I want to say it was, he was either suspended or he was hurt.
That was the year he got in trouble legally and had to miss the entire season because of court dates and stuff like that.
Right. And when you look at statistically, that was Bridgewater's best year.
Yeah.
So I just think that's a really interesting point to make.
I mean, but that's the weird thing, though. Like his rookie year and his second year weren't that different.
They weren't that much different.
He's an extremely consistent player so far.
Right.
Like week to week, year to year, quarter to quarter. He's just really consistent. But the problem with him is that level of play he's playing consistently is super average.
Yeah.
It's nothing crazy. It's not going to be the one that's going to go win you all these games with his arm. But he's not playing bad like where you're thinking maybe we should cut or trade him. He's there, middle of the pack.
Yeah, but when you look at the Chiefs with Alex Smith, that's the same thing. And the Chiefs have shown that if with their defense, they can make it to the playoffs. They haven't really had much success in the playoffs, but still they can get there. So
I think Alex Smith's a step ahead of Bridgewater right now, though. I think Bridgewater could be better, but Alex Smith right now I'd rather have.
Yeah, but I mean, Bridgewater and Smith are similar style quarterbacks. Bridgewater will progress.
At least so far.
Right. He'll progress as he gets older, too. But with that Vikings defense now, I think they'll be a similar team to the Chiefs in the near future. So I think that's a good fit for Bridgewater to stay there. So.
All right, guys. Well, that was a good discussion we had there between Bradford and Bridgewater. I'm still sticking on my side that I'd rather have Sam Bradford. I'm assuming you're probably sticking on your side. You'd rather have Teddy Bridgewater.
Teddy all the way.
Teddy two gloves. Well, we're going to be right back from a break, guys. We're going to play a couple ads here, and then we're going to talk about Xavier Rhodes, Josh Norman, and the Falcons right after this break. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside the Trenches. We're going to talk a little bit about some of these games that happened over the weekend, but more specifically, the actual players involved in these games and the significance of how well they're playing. So let's start with Xavier Rhodes. I think that if the season were to end today, I understand we're 4 weeks into the season, but if the season were to end today, Xavier Rhodes to me is the Defensive Player of the Year.
I could see it.
I think he's the best player right now playing. He has allowed a quarterback rating of 0 through 4 games. That is having covered some pretty good quarterbacks pretty good receivers like Odell Beckham and Kelvin Benjamin. Mm-hmm. He has allowed 3 catches on 10 targets thrown towards him this whole season for 23 yards. All of those came last night against Odell. Odell had the worst game of his career, and that is the only stats he's given up all season.
That's nuts.
Was giving up Odell's worst game of his career. So that's like, oh yeah, you gave him some catches and some yards, but you held that one of the best players in the NFL to their worst game they've ever had.
Yeah.
So that's nuts.
I think even for him, holding Kelvin Benjamin to 0 catches.
And he also has an interception and a pass deflection too.
Yeah. That's nuts for Xavier Rhodes. And I always kind of liked him. I'm not really sure why, but I always kind of liked him as a player. So I'm liking his play so far.
I remember when he was coming out of college from Florida State, he was kind of on the radar from what I had heard for the Dolphins, and that's my favorite team. I don't really talk about them much on the show. I try to stay unbiased as much as I can, but I had heard he was kind of on the Dolphins' radar, so I checked out some of his film, and I thought he was good in college too, but I didn't quite see like lockdown corner defensive player of the year candidate like he is right now. He's kind of right now through 4 games what Josh Norman was through like 4 games last year, just without all the interceptions and pick sixes. Just his level of play has been that good. And next week, this upcoming week, he's playing DeAndre Hopkins. So we'll get to see, is this legit? I mean, we've already seen Kelvin Benjamin, no catches. Odell, worst game of his career. It's legit. But we get to see another test of like, if he can shut it down again this week, man, that's crazy. Because right now he's playing on a level through 4 weeks of what Darrelle Revis played on that season where he had maybe the greatest season a corner's ever had. It was like 2010-ish or something like that, where he played like 6 of the best receivers in the league and gave up like a total of 200 yards and no touchdowns on the season.
Yeah.
That was like Calvin Johnson, Andre Johnson, Ocho Cinco, Larry Fitzgerald. Like he was shutting them down. It's kind of on the level Xavier Rhodes is playing right now.
Yeah, and Xavier Rhodes this upcoming week with DeAndre Hopkins, that seems like it's going to be a really tough matchup for him. But DeAndre Hopkins, as of late, hasn't really done much. And I'm not really sure what it is exactly. I know that Will Fuller's taken a lot of
I was going to say, it might be
away from
the
him.
emergence of Will Fuller.
That could be it, but still, like, that should just open up Hopkins more.
It should. Yeah, it should.
I don't really understand that. But still, it's a good matchup for him. That's a tough matchup.
Man, Will Fuller looks good. Did you see him this last week? That punt return touchdown?
Yep.
Whew, that man's got wheels.
He
I was
does.
sitting on the 40-yard line at the combine. I got tickets to go to the combine. They sat me on the 40, and I was there when he ran it. And the second I mean, everyone knew he was fast.
Yeah.
But when he ran it, I was just, whew. Fast. That's a fast man right there. That's a bad dude.
Yeah.
Will Fuller looks bad, too, right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be a legit duo.
It will be.
Him and DeAndre. Well, let's see if DeAndre can pick the slack up a little bit. I mean, he's just as talented as any receiver in the league.
For sure.
It's just, can he put it back on the field like he had last year and the year before? You know, he kicked Andre Johnson out of the Texans, man.
Yeah.
Like the best player in the history of that team. He ran him out of town with his play. So hopefully he can pick it up, but not an easy task this week. Speaking of corners, I really wanted to talk about Josh Norman. So before we can really talk about Josh Norman, I guess we have to talk about the Panthers and Julio Jones. So this last week, Julio Jones had 12 catches for 300 yards, and a touchdown. 6th player to ever have 300 yards in a football game. He's absurd. I mean, and it's funny because it came off of a week where we were questioning him here in the studio saying, oh, he had 1 catch on Monday Night Football against a bad Saints team. What's up with Julio? And he said, I'm here.
He did.
I'm right here, guys. Don't forget about me. Don't knock me to love. I wasn't even in the top 20 in receiving yards in the season, and now I'm first place.
Number 1.
488 yards, and I had like 200 or I had 188 coming into the week. Now I'm first.
Yeah, I think it's nuts for Julio. For me, like, I always knew Julio was going to bounce back. Like, it's Julio Jones. He's one of the, if not the best receiver in the league.
You could make the argument. I think Antonio's the best, but he's second best in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say he's the best physically.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He's a monster. Maybe one person that can compare to him is Kelvin Benjamin, but he still doesn't have
Kelvin just doesn't have the explosiveness.
Right.
And Kelvin's problem is he makes the easy catch look hard and the hard catch look easy.
Yeah,
You throw him a fade with double coverage in the corner of the end zone, it's probably a touchdown, but you throw him a slant or a curl and he might drop it.
Yeah. But Julio, he's as solid as it gets all the way around.
Yeah, he is.
And I was just waiting for him to explode. I didn't think it would come like this, but
no,
I definitely was
he
waiting
had like
on
170 yards at halftime, and I was just like, well, usually when this happens, you think in your head like, whoa, he could get to 300, and then, almost every
down.
time in the second half, every time in any situation statistically in football, a team game plans for it at halftime, comes back and shuts it down. It happens almost every time.
Right.
Literally did the same thing in the second half that he did in the first half.
Yeah, he was nuts that game.
It was
well,
insane.
I think it does have a lot to do with the Panthers' secondary, though, and this is a great segue.
Yeah, what I was trying to say about this Panthers secondary, they gave up, not just to him, 503 passing yards this week. 503. This is a 1-3 football team now.
Yeah.
This is not a team where they had just like a fluke loss to Matt Ryan. Because Matt Ryan just decided to wake up and be good today, you know?
Yeah.
No. They couldn't defend anybody. Josh Norman said some gold. Josh Norman said, you get what you pay for. And that was just like a mic drop, walk away. You know what I mean? That was the best line he could have said. You get what you pay for. You didn't want to pay for a good corner. this is what happens. You get torched. So my first instinct was, well, how's Josh Norman doing this year against some stars? How would he have done against Julio? So I look it up. I go on Pro Football Focus because they're really good at that kind of analytic stuff. So he's played 2 elite receivers, Des Bryant and Antonio Brown. I think everybody that's ever watched football can say those are elite receivers.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Antonio Brown's probably the best in the league, just as good as Julio, if not better.
Yep.
He has been targeted 4 times, twice when Des Bryant was on him, and twice with Antonio Brown. 4 targets. 0 catches allowed to either of them, and all 4 passes he deflected. All 4.
That's nuts. Against Antonio Brown, you don't give
and
up
Des
a catch.
Bryant. I mean, they're totally different players too.
They are totally different
you
players.
Have your athletic, or you have your route runner god in Antonio Brown, who has the feet, like the best feet in the league. You know what I mean? He can get open anywhere. And then you have Des Bryant, who's just a physical monster.
Yeah.
Both of them he shut down.
Both of them. And Des Bryant, to be fair, he's hurt and he hasn't really been anything this year. But
Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown, and it's Des Bryant.
That's all you have Chris Harris gave up 200 yards to Antonio Brown. Chris Harris, who's like just as good as anybody.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, I was like, well, there you go. He has every right to say what he said.
Say whatever
every
he
right
wants.
he wanted to say that. So when you look at that on paper, you're just thinking, maybe they should have paid that money. They probably thought, well, we have a good enough defense anyways. Do you?
Yeah.
Do you?
I mean, they're not getting as much pressure this year either, which is a big deal when it comes to your
secondary. And they're giving up a lot of pressure on offense.
Yes. So I feel like they needed to get him back because they don't really have anybody else. And they're without the pressure, they really don't have anybody else.
Let's pay some respect to Matt Ryan too, huh?
Okay, yeah.
Matt Ryan has a 3-1 football team. Now, I'm not buying into this fool's gold. I'm not
No.
doing it. You are not selling me on the Falcons until like week 8. The last 2 years in a row, they started really hot and then sucked after that. They were what? 5-0 last year and then lost like 8 straight. I will not buy into the hype. But Matt Ryan deserves all the props in the world for his first month of football this season.
He does. I mean, 500 yards in one game. That's only been done, what,
He's
10 other
leading the
times?
league in passing and passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
Right now. He has like 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns. Yeah.
And only 2 picks.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So he is, for me right now, let's segue into some of our awards we'd give out if the season were to end today. My MVP and Offensive Player of the Year are Matt Ryan.
I agree with both.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? Were you going to give it to someone else? You shouldn't.
You can't. I mean, when you have 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns and 2 picks
Yeah.
on a 3-1 team.
Especially for a guy that threw some picks last year that really
yeah.
lost football games. He threw picks when it was the last thing in the world you needed.
Yeah, and going up against teams like...
And all the criticism he got, where people are is it time to move on from Matt Ryan? That was a big question this offseason.
It was.
People were asking, like, and was it valid? Maybe it wasn't. This was kind of like his hot seat year. Man, is he shutting people up early.
Yeah, he is. I think a big thing, too, is going up against teams like the Saints and the Panthers, who last year, and even this year with the Saints, Drew Brees is going to throw all over you.
Oh, yeah.
And he just matched him. Like, no
And
big
he didn't
deal.
even throw to Julio Jones.
Yeah, like it was no big
And
deal.
their running game tore it up.
Yeah.
He wasn't even the one dominating. The running backs were.
Uh-huh.
He's playing out of his mind right now. So our Offensive Player of the Year and MVP is Matt Ryan. My Defensive Player of the Year, I already covered Xavier Rhodes. Who is your Defensive Player of the Year right now?
My Defensive Player of the Year is a linebacker on the Bills, Zach Brown.
Ooh, interesting. Tell us why.
Well, he pretty much solidified his 4-week Defensive Player of the Year last week against the Patriots. He had something like 12, 15, I don't know, something like that. A ridiculous amount of tackles. And he had 2 forced fumbles in that game. And he has 1 sack on the year, which I don't think he's an outside linebacker. I think he's a middle guy. And even if he's an outside guy, he doesn't really blitz off that often.
They run a I want to say they run a 3-4 or so.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he's been all over the field, obviously. With on the year, he has 52 tackles.
That's
So
pretty
he's been
good for 4
everywhere.
games.
Yeah. So I think he's through the first 4.
I mean, he's on pace for 200 tackles.
Yeah. I think he's the best defensive player through the first
and it's interesting you said that, because that's not a name many people would really recognize. So I'm glad you're giving a guy props that probably isn't going to get his props through the media or any other outlet. So it's nice to give a guy his props when they're due, especially when people don't really know who you are. Like Josh Norman made his name last year at this time of the season.
Yeah.
He was good throughout the season, but his first quarter of the year is when he really was destroying people.
Right.
And that's when he got his name so big and made himself some money. So it's good that these guys get their names recognized early in the season, and then it puts eyeballs on them for the rest of the year. So let's move on to our rookies. Who do you think is your offensive rookie of the year so far?
Offensive rookie of the year, I gotta go with Zeke. Ezekiel Elliott. He's leading the league in rushing.
He's leading the league in rushing by it's like a handful of yards, like 20 or 30 yards.
Yeah, he's got 412 yards.
Yeah, the best running back in the league, Isaiah Crowell, second. So
yeah, 3 touchdowns too. Which when Dak Prescott isn't really throwing touchdowns,
which is most of the time. Like until last week, he threw 1 in 3 games.
Yeah, but I mean, still, like with 3 touchdowns in 4 games, that's a good amount of touchdowns. And his average yards per carry is 4.4.
And the thing is, it was really bad actually at the start of the year. I was kind of tracking his yards per carry, and they've gotten better. I think every single week they've gone up. So good for him, and he's getting a lot of carries. They really have trust in him, and it's interesting that a team is being run by a rookie QB and running back who have their best weapon on the team hurt. And they're still 3-1. I mean, they had a super weak schedule so far, and they have a couple harder games coming up here soon. But it's still, I mean, that's as good of a start as you could pretty much ask for from a rookie-led offense.
Yeah.
They lost Zach Martin today. He got put on the IR, but Tyron Smith's coming back, so it's kind of like you're trading one for the other. So
balances out.
Yeah, the alien left tackle from like another world's coming back. So my offensive player of the year, or offensive rookie of the year, I thought about Zeke. I did, because he's leading the league in rushing. I had to give it to Carson Wentz. Okay. And the reason I'm giving it to Carson Wentz is because, one, I think he's top 10 in the league right now in quarterback rating. He is a rookie, like we're saying. Yeah. He's leading an offense that has very underwhelming running backs, underwhelming receivers, decent tight end, and some good tackles on the offensive line, but the interior is kind of
Yeah.
Their defense was a bit of a question mark. They're playing pretty well, though. But this is a team people were expecting would be 0-3 and be a bottom 3 team in the league. They're 3-0.
Yeah.
With not very many weapons. He, just like Dak Prescott, has not turned the ball over one time yet this season. He's playing just as good a football as anybody. Anybody. Like, maybe not Matt Ryan, but like, I mean, could you literally ask for anything more from a rookie quarterback than you're asking from Carson Wentz? You have almost no weapons around you, and you're playing almost perfect. So, to me, I have to give it to the guy that's overperforming. Everyone thought Zeke would do well in that offense with that offensive line. It's like the level of expectations, he's meeting his expectations. Carson Wentz has surpassed. He found out he was starting like 5 days before the season started. He went from third string to starter like 5 days before their first game.
Yeah, Carson Wentz definitely has.
And they massacred the Steelers.
They did. He's overwhelmed for sure, and I think that's a good thing for the Eagles for sure. When you go up and you trade for that pick, a lot of people might be skeptical of that. They might be a little worried, just because you're not 100% sure on that. And when it turns out, you seem like a genius, like IQ of who knows what. But I mean, Carson Wentz is ridiculous. Like if Matt Ryan wasn't playing right now, Carson Wentz could potentially be MVP just for what he's doing for the team.
And he's only played 3 games, and a lot of these guys have played 4, so it's kind of hard to compare stats side by side because he's played less games, and that's just the nature of how bye weeks work. And actually, that's a good time to remind you guys, the bye weeks for this week are the Jacksonville Jaguars, who played in London, so they get a week off after that long trip. The Chiefs, who really could use a bye week after this last game. Yeah. The Saints, who also could use a bye week just to talk about what defense means. And then the Seattle Seahawks, who they're just the Seattle Seahawks. So those are the bye weeks for this week. But continuing on with our awards, let's go to Defensive Rookie of the Year. Who do you have?
Well, there really wasn't anybody who stood out. So I went with Leonard Floyd of the Bears. Just because he's got 13 tackles. That's pretty solid. And he has half a sack. So, I mean, that's okay. Nobody else has really stood out too much, so...
Speaking of which, I took a super cop-out, and I'm not giving that award out yet. Nobody has earned it. Nobody has... And that's not saying no one's playing well. Right. But no one's stepped up above the pack enough to earn some kind of award or recognition by any means more than any other rookie. Mm-hmm. Just no defensive rookie has really popped their head up or put their hand up and said, me, I'm the guy. Yeah. They just haven't yet. And there's been like 5 offensive rookies who have.
Right.
But the defensive guys, they're just kind of all in the same tier to me. So I'm taking a cop-out. I'm not giving that out yet. I'll save that for maybe next week, or as soon as someone stands up above the rest, I'll give that award out.
All right, seems fair.
Coach of the year, we have the same guy, I believe, Mike Zimmer, correct?
We do, yeah.
What he's done with an offense with no Adrian Peterson, trading for a quarterback last minute, lost his starting left tackle. They're 4-0, and they're dominating people.
Yeah, the Vikings, I mean, this year with, exactly like you said, losing Adrian Peterson, losing Teddy Bridgewater, bringing in a quarterback, 5, something like that, days before.
I think it was on a Monday. The first game of the season was on Sunday, and I think it was Monday or Tuesday they brought him in.
It was something like that. But a few days before, they have to play. And yeah, he didn't play in the first game, but
they won, though.
They won.
With Sean Hill. My grandpa.
Yeah, so Mike Zimmer is doing a fantastic job, and that defense is unbelievable. So he's doing fantastic. Well, I don't think you can give it to anybody else, really.
And I won't. You're right. And I can make some arguments. I think Doug Peterson, just for the fact that everybody questioned so much if he was even deserving of being a head coach in the NFL, and his team's undefeated, just because of that, I'd like to give it to him. They're just not playing. I don't know. The situation's a little different than the one the Vikings have. Mm-hmm. The pieces are falling down around him, and everything's still okay. That's a good. You have the trust of your locker room, and your players have bought in. When you lose someone like Adrian Peterson,
yep,
and it doesn't feel like you're missing a beat.
Exactly.
It's really impressive. So, comeback player of the year. You want to go first?
Sure. Comeback player of the year for me is Kelvin Benjamin.
Okay.
He doesn't really have many yards. That doesn't help when he went against the Vikings and got 0 catches. But he's got 238 yards and 4 touchdowns, which in 4 weeks, that's solid. That's ideal. So I think he's doing a great job coming back from that injury last year that knocked him out for the year. I'm gonna have to give it to him.
Okay, and my comeback player of the year, and I know it's kind of weird because I know it's a little early to probably give this award out. I went with Le'Veon Bell, and I know he's played 1 game, but I believe he's in the top 30 in rushing already on the season. He single-handedly dominated the Chiefs, and he looks like he hasn't missed a game in his career. He looks phenomenal in that first game. He looks great. He's in great shape. He didn't miss a beat. He came out and put up almost 200 yards on one of the better defenses in the league. I mean, and the weird thing is, D'Angelo Williams was balling before he came in. He hardly played.
Yeah.
They were just listen, dude, here's the deal. Le'Veon is he's looking fine, and I know you were one of the top 5 running backs in the league before he came in, but you can sit down. And you know what? We'll let you play when we line our starting running back up as a wideout.
And it works, though. So,
yeah, on the second play of the game, I was like, they already took Bell out? I hope he didn't get re-hurt. Now, oh, no, he's on the opposite side of Antonio Brown as the wideout on the offense. Because he's the second best route runner on the team.
He really is. And, I mean, that's the ideal, the model of utility.
Oh, yeah.
You want a guy like that on every team, and you pretty much never get that.
A couple years ago, I think he had 1,500 rushing yards and 800 receiving yards.
A ridiculous amount. He was
so good.
The second leading receiver in terms of receptions, I think.
Oh, yeah.
On the team.
Well, I'd throw to him too.
Yeah.
So Le'Veon Bell's my comeback player of the year. And before we go to a break, let's quickly go through what is the biggest surprise of this season to you so far?
My biggest surprise, I told you this a while ago. I really like Ryan Tannehill. I think he's a good player. But I'm surprised that this year with Adam Gase, the quarterback whisperer, he hasn't really done much.
I wish we could spend the next 30 minutes talking about Ryan Tannehill. I am way too opinionated on Ryan Tannehill. As a Dolphins fan, I'm not surprised that he's not playing to the level you probably thought he would with Gase. But honestly, Gase hasn't been that good so far. I was watching some game film today, actually, of our third downs. Our third down play calling's not good. Our offensive line can't block. Tannehill has the worst pocket presence of anybody I've ever seen, especially for someone who is actually athletic and get out of the pocket if he wants to.
Yeah.
Our receivers can get 0 separation. It's a mess. First down, the play calls are not good right now in Miami either. We're just not executing. And the thing is, Adam Gase is blaming it on himself. He said today, this is my fault. And he's not wrong. It's a lot of times coaches will say that and you're like, man, you don't really need to take that heat when your team's not playing well. It's his fault so far. I like Gase as a coach, and I'm glad that he's not going to blame it on his players, but it's his fault. So, and Tannehill's not playing well either. I mean, he's not playing bad. He's like what this year. He's what Blake Bortles was last year. This year, he's okay, a turnover machine. And then in the fourth quarter when they're losing, he throws for 300 yards and his stats look good.
I guess you're right there, but I definitely wouldn't have compared those two.
That's, I mean, just like from a perspective of he is the 2016 so far like garbage time champ.
I could see it, yeah.
That's
for
what
sure.
that's what I meant.
But that's
by
just
that
because the
comparison.
Dolphins are never in a good spot in the fourth quarter.
God, don't remind me. They actually play the Titans this week. So last year they dominated the Titans. That was the first game of the Dan Campbell era last year when they smoked the Titans. So fingers crossed. But
They should win.
My surprise of the year is just, we talked about it last week, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. Just the 1-3 Cardinals. I really thought they were going to be the best team in the NFL. I wasn't going to be surprised if they went 14-2. I thought they had the best top 2 coach in the league with Bill Belichick. They had second place in voting for MVP at quarterback. More weapons than you could imagine. Running back core that any team would dream of. Defense that's stacked at every level, and they're 1-3. And they're still like 7th and 9th in offense and defense in the league right now. I don't understand.
So do you think they could go 13-3?
If any team could win that many games in a row after starting this bad, it would be this team. Anyone. The Chiefs did it last year, so why can't they?
So yes, you think they can?
I think they could, but Carson Palmer's hurt. So,
True.
I think they could lose. I think the best they could do is they could end up like 12-4. Still, I really think that they're that good of a team.
Wow.
But
All right.
they're not playing like it. They're top 10 offense and defensively, but 1-3.
Yeah.
Like something's got to give here eventually, right?
Yeah. You're right. You're right. I don't think they'll be able to go 12-4.
I don't think they will, but I think that they have. If any team could do it, this is the team.
I could see it. I guess
The Chiefs did it last year.
They did.
What were they,
did.
1-4, and then they won out?
I think so.
Or they lost like one more. They went
Maybe
like on a
one more.
9-game winning streak to end the season after they lost like 4 of their first 5 or 6.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. It happens.
Yeah.
They could pull a reverse Falcons.
They could.
All right, guys. Well, that's enough for that segment. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Colts and the Bears. They're actually playing each other this week, so we're going to give a little preview of that game. So we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Inside the Trenches, where we're going to be talking about the Bears and the Colts right now, the local teams around this area. And this week, they're actually playing each other. But before we get into that game preview, let's talk about this past week first. The Bears got their first win of the season, so good job, Chicago.
Congrats.
Congrats to all the Bears fans out there. Brian Hoyer's not looking bad. Surprise, surprise. He's not that bad. Like we said, is he a great starting quarterback? No, never will be. He's one of the best backups you could ask for. That's what he's doing right now. He's coming in a few games when you need him to, playing well enough to get the job done, and he's playing better than we thought he would, but this isn't the kind of level of play he's probably going to keep up for long.
No, he's not. And me being from that Chicago area, I know Bears fans right now are probably glorifying Brian Hoyer, but when Cutler's available to come back, he's got to come back because, like you said,
he will. I mean, his
he
upside,
will.
his upside is just so much higher. It's just no one has lower lows than Jay Cutler.
Right.
But
right.
his upside's there, man. I mean, he's got the talent of he's one of the most talented, like in his body, gifted quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I
just
said,
don't know if it's there mentally.
Most of the time it's not. It really isn't.
That arm is pretty impressive.
It is. And okay, like I said, I mean, Cutler's coming back, and I just really want to press that because I know Bears fans, they're liking Hoyer right now. They really are.
They should be.
And they should be. He's doing well. He is. But they're not going to want Cutler to come back, and he needs to come back for them to have a chance. And even if he does come back, they're really not going to have much of a chance, but it'll be a better shot.
I think Cutler's going to get traded this offseason. I think this is the offseason he's gone.
It's possible.
I wouldn't be surprised if he went to Miami, if they traded Tannehill and flipped it for Cutler to go back with Gase. I wouldn't be happy about that as a Dolphins fan. I wouldn't be. I don't want him because I feel like there's still just this glass ceiling. You're never going to get it past. You know what I mean? I feel like I'd rather take a chance on another rookie, and if it means you're bad, you're bad. We're already bad. What are we going to do, lose? You know what I mean? Like that's my mindset now. What are you going to do, lose? Might as well take a chance.
Yeah.
We've been losing for 20 years.
Yeah. But, okay, so you wouldn't want Cutler over Tannehill?
No, not really. They're both inconsistent. They both have, Tannehill's floor is awful. You know what I mean? When he plays bad, he plays bad. Mm-hmm. So does Cutler. They have awful floors. Cutler's ceiling is what? Marginally higher than Tannehill's?
Yeah.
Marginally? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tannehill's got something Cutler doesn't. He can run. Cutler has something Tannehill doesn't, which is a cannon. And when I say cannon, Tannehill can throw. He just can't he's not really shown that he has good ball placement deep. He doesn't even really shown that. He's not going to throw fades in the end zone. I don't think I've ever seen him throw a fade in his life. You know what I mean? So
okay, well,
there's just different style of quarter. Just what's the point at this point? Why would you trade for Cutler? What are you going to get out of him? You're going to get what you got last year from the Bears, not a playoff berth.
I definitely agree with you. I just wanted to see see what you say.
That was like, you know, that was nice version of putting it.
Yeah.
That was tame.
But okay, so
especially with that contract.
Yeah. But all right, Cutler comes back. Is he coming back this week? I don't think so.
I honestly, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I don't think he is.
Not that I've heard.
Hoyer has looked good though, so that's good for them.
2 straight 300-yard games for Hoyer.
Yeah.
The problem with that team is though they still need to score points. They can't score. They're second to last in the league in points. 15.5 points a game. They have to score points. I get they won. They won with 17 points scored. Congrats, you stopped the other team, but you didn't score again. It's 4th week in a row. You haven't scored points.
Yeah, they need to score points, but I think a really good sign for them is Jordan Howard. Like, they've finally stepped up the run game.
I was going to say the same thing. They couldn't run, but they finally found a rushing game to at least stick with. And if you can't score a bunch of points, you have to be able to at least run the clock down.
Yep.
And they've at least found a guy. And the thing is, they're not a team that would typically run the ball a lot, but they found a rushing game that's going to work for them, it looks like. So good for them. They have a rushing game for now. But they were able to stop Stafford a little bit in the passing game, which was kind of surprising to me, especially when they're going to be playing the Colts. So let's move to the Colts just for a minute before we actually preview the matchup. So the Colts, they scored 21 fourth quarter points against this Jaguars team, still lost. They just couldn't pull together a full game. They lost 30-27 in London. And honestly, we were talking about how Gus Bradley might get fired coming back. I was sitting there thinking, maybe he's not even the coach that's going to get fired coming back from London at this point.
I don't know. I think with the Colts, the issue is they need to start quicker.
Yeah. They also need to stop somebody from getting massive amounts of yards and points on them.
Well, that's true, but I mean, with the defense that they have, that's not really
The
feasible.
Jaguars had 11 penalties for 145 yards. 145 free yards they gave the Colts, and they couldn't capitalize on it after scoring 21 fourth quarter points. You shot yourself in the foot. If that doesn't let you win a football game, what does? They gave you 145 free yards. What can you ask for more? You scored 27 points. That's enough to win a football game. You took the lead late in the fourth, and you gave up like a 41-yard touchdown late in the fourth to Allen Hurns.
Yeah. I mean, like I said,
they
that
just
defense...
cut Antonio Cromartie today.
Yeah, I don't know why they would do that with their defense.
Sorry for cutting you off. I'm getting emotional over here.
No,
I'm not even
a
Colts fan, and I'm getting upset.
They can't... They need to do something on defense. They need to add a player, trade for a player. They need to draft defensive players. They need to do something because they haven't had a good defense for who knows how long, because they'd have Peyton Manning and then Andrew Luck.
Yeah, I just bit my tongue hard on a Ryan Grigson rant right there about how they should have fired him before the season. I just bit my tongue hard. You probably saw me over here in the studio. I got a little upset about that. So it came down to a 4th and 1 play. They tried to pass it to Dwayne Allen, and they couldn't quite get it completed. The Colts seems like their scoring's coming off of big plays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Big play to T.Y. Hilton. Mm-hmm. Big play to Philip Dorsett. Really long pass interference that puts them on the 1-yard line. Mm-hmm. Like, they're getting their scoring from big plays. They can't really string together these 80-yard drives. They're not doing that. They're either going to score on you with a home run hit, or they're not going to score. And that's not really an efficient way to play football.
No, it's not. And I think that's how the Colts have been for a few years now. They would get the occasional nice drive down the field, but a lot of times their scoring just comes from deep balls from Andrew Luck to T.Y. or
it just seems
Reggie
like
Wayne.
Andrew Luck's becoming like the ultimate go big or go home player.
It does seem like that.
And I mean, maybe that's just because of the lack of talent around him, defensively, rushing game wise, receiving wise, offensive line. Maybe just because he's what else is there to really offer? Yeah, he has T.Y. Hilton. That's what else?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Dwayne Allen's supposed to be like the tight end that was supposed to save him. He's not even playing well this year.
No.
He's getting outplayed by his backup.
Yeah.
So they're going to play each other this week. And what's interesting to me is the Colts didn't get a bye week coming back from London like most teams do. The Jags did.
Yeah.
So the Colts are going to maybe have some jet lag coming back from London for this game. So I don't know if that plays a factor in the game, but jet lag is a real thing, especially when you're coming from overseas. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting that they're going to make them play again this week. But basically what this game comes down to for me on paper, the Colts are 7th in the league in scoring 27 points a game. The Bears are 31st, scoring 15 and a half. Mm-hmm. The Bears have to outscore the Colts, and I just don't know if they can.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll be able to do that either, but I don't know. I feel like the Bears' defense against the Colts, I mean, the Colts couldn't do anything against the Jags through the first 3 quarters. And the Jags have solid defense.
But if a team's going to play well, you want it to be in the 4th, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's true. And I guess to your point, the Bears don't really score enough points to where they could.
They have to outscore this Colts team. The Colts' problem is their defense. They're 7th in the league in scoring. They can score points.
Yeah. I just feel like the Bears will be able to hold them off for the first 3 quarters.
And if they can, then that's all it's going to take. The Lions have a great passing game. They shut them down.
Yeah, and it'll be very similar to the Jaguars game, I feel like. I feel like the Bears are going to hold them. The only thing is the Bears won't score as many points, so I'm not sure if they'll be able to hold that lead in the 4th.
I don't think they're capable of scoring 30 points. Not right now.
I really don't think they are either.
So what this game comes down to me is, can the Bears keep up with them on the scoreboard? But the Bears do have a key to victory that I think is a possible way for them to win this game. And it's kind of similar to what they did last week against the Lions. Can they get Howard involved again? Get him the ball enough times where he's getting some big chunk yardage, because the Colts aren't really good at stopping the run either. Mm-hmm. Can they run on them, run the clock down, and just be efficient? If Hoyer cannot turn the football over, because Andrew Luck's kind of turnover prone. Mm-hmm. Maybe you get 2 takeaways, but you don't turn any over. You can run the ball, run the clock. Maybe you don't have to score 30 points. Maybe you only need to score 21. Maybe. But this is the 7th highest scoring offense right now in the NFL. So that's the problem, is you got to outscore them, but there's ways to manage how much they can score.
Yes, and two things I really want to bring up. The Bears, when I looked at first downs for both these teams, the Bears have 74 first downs and give up 79. The Colts, this is outstandingly different. The Colts have 91 first downs and are giving up 92. So if the Colts can keep that up, if they can keep getting first downs on the Bears, who are giving up slightly more than they're getting, I think the Colts pull it out. But the other thing I wanted to point out was the Bears have been having issues with field goals. And that's probably in large part to releasing Robbie Gould. They're only 2 for 4 on field goals. And the Colts are 8 for 8. They're solid there with Adam Vinatieri. So I think
one of the best kickers of all time.
I think those 2 things could definitely be deciding factors in this game.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, let's say this could almost be like a Vikings-Seahawks scenario. I mean, definitely not defensively. Yeah. It's going to be the opposite, actually, in a way. But it comes down to, what if they come down to a 40-yard field goal for the Bears to win and they just wide left miss. Or wide right? It's very possible.
It is possible.
What if the Bears lose by 3 points and they miss 3 field goals in the game? The problem with the Bears is they get there, and then what? Yeah. They move the sticks a few times. They're not great at it, but they move the sticks a few times. They get there, and then what? Nothing to show for it.
Right.
You got to get the points. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's 2 field goals. That's 6 points. They're only averaging 15.
Yeah.
That's more than a third of what you're getting a game.
Yeah.
You need those points, man.
They do.
You need those points. So if they can't convert these field goals, I don't think they win this game. No way if they can't convert their field goals. You need every point you can get when you're not a good offensive team to beat a team that's good on offense. Yeah. You need every point you can get. So who do you have winning the game?
I know everything I just said made it sound like I have the Colts, but I'm going to go with the Bears just because I think their defense can hold them, and I think they'll be able to score just enough points to hold them off.
Well, I'm going to pick the Colts. I think they're just going to outscore the Bears, and I just don't know if the Bears can keep up with it on the scoreboard. But I do think there's an opportunity there for the Bears. So we're going to come back, and we're going to wrap the show up with our Game of the Week pick, tell you who we think's going to win, and look at the game a little bit deeper than most people would. So we'll be right back here in just a minute after these ads. Welcome back to Inside the Trenches. We're going to wrap up our show here today with our Game of the Week pick, and once again, just like last week, we're picking the Sunday Night Football game. That's not on purpose. We're not just picking these primetime games because they're the primetime games. They're just the ones that on paper look like the best matchup to us. So this week is the Giants playing on the road against the Green Bay Packers, who are coming off of their bye week. The Giants are coming off a loss last night on Monday Night Football. Noah, what do you think is interesting about this game?
I think the main point in this game is going to be turnovers for both teams. And that'll wind up being a good thing for one of the teams and a bad for the other.
Did you say the Giants have not forced a turnover yet this season?
I think they have, but they're -8.
Okay, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. And the Packers are
Rodgers is also the guy he's the last person you're going to pick off. The last. He'll finish seasons with 4 picks.
Yeah.
So if you're going to force a turnover, it's going to be in special teams or it's going to be a fumble. It probably won't be from Aaron Rodgers.
No.
So the interesting thing about this game, well, you have your diva situation when it comes to Odell Beckham. He said today he's not having fun playing football anymore. He got shut down last night, and apparently Xavier Rhodes in part of the game basically told him, chill out, dude. It's all good. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I don't know what's going on, man. Just calm down. The other team's telling you, hey, man, just calm down. They're supposed to be trying to get in your head and freak you out, and it's like he's doing it to himself. I think opposing defenders know they can get in his head, they can make him get emotional, make silly mistakes, and cost his team games. Eli Manning's come out and said, he needs to tone it down. Mm-hmm. Coach McAdoo said the same thing. And Odell's saying he's not having fun playing football right now. Yeah. I think it's just he's in his own head too much, where I think the world expected everything of him. You know what I mean? I think people are expecting him to be the next great whatever. One of the best receivers that we've ever watched play football. His expectations were so high because he was playing at a level no one's ever played at for a rookie or a second-year player. No one. And he's getting shut down early, and it's really frustrating him. Mm-hmm. Ever since he got suspended from that Norman game, he's not played well one time. Not the end of last year, not at all this year. He's not played well since that Josh Norman incident. Not at all.
Yeah, and I think with Odell, like he said, he's not having fun anymore. I think that's a big thing with receivers who are similar to him. When you look in the past, like Terrell Owens, Chad Ochocinco, guys like that who have really big egos, and they need to be enjoying themselves while they play. Otherwise, they get demoralized. And a lot like Brandon Marshall, he's the type of guy where if he's not doing well, if he's not having fun, he gets incredibly demoralized and he just can't play.
The thing about Odell, though, is this year, unlike last year and the year before, they have legit receiving threats on the field without him. They don't need him. He played every single snap last night and had 3 catches.
Yep. Sterling
Shepard's good.
He's
a Rookie of the Year candidate.
He is.
Victor Cruz is back, and he doesn't look like he really missed that much time. He's playing well.
Yeah.
They don't need Odell on the field if he's going to keep costing them plays.
Yeah, they really don't. And I feel like he's that type of player where you, as a coach, you feel like you can't sit.
You can't, because there's the possibility that he could just get an 80-yard touchdown any given play.
It's possible at any time. But, I mean, when you have those other 2 receivers, if he's going to keep distracting the team like this, if he's going to keep putting himself down, saying that he's not having fun, you got to do something. I mean, you can't just let the guy keep going out there and potentially hurting your team. So I feel like something has to be done.
Kind of reminds me of what we were talking about last week with Cam Newton, their confidence level. I feel like they're both just at all-time lows in confidence, and it's really affecting their play. I think if Cam Newton were to come out this week and throw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns and win a game by 20, he'd probably be fine. He honestly might be fine for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
I felt like if Odell came out this week on the Packers in prime time, put up 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, I bet he'd be fine and he'd be having fun again.
For sure.
I think their confidence levels are just at rock bottom.
They are.
So let's move to the actual aspect of the matchup here. The interesting thing about the Packers to me is we spent all offseason talking about how good their DB core looked. Mm-hmm. They looked really good on paper, a young DB core that could shut down just about anybody. They're not. They've given up over 900 passing yards in 3 games. But the weird thing is they've given like 128 rushing yards in 3 games total. Nobody can run on them, but everybody can pass on them. Even Sam Bradford's first game, he looked like a monster against them, if you remember. Yeah. Matt Stafford looked like a freak 2 weeks ago against them. So they can't stop anyone passing with a great pass rush and good DBs, but they can stop everyone rushing. The thing is, the Giants can't run, but they can pass. Is that going to be a weakness they can expose?
I think it will be, especially with the Giants. Paul Perkins was their best running back last night, and he had one big run, and that was pretty much it.
And then you have Orleans Darkwa.
Yeah, he had a touchdown, but I mean they're on like the 1 or something, and he's not a guy who's going to run for you 100 yards just like that.
My thought process is, though, what if the Packers take away the run completely from a team that already can't run? Very possible, right? Mm-hmm. Does that just allow Clay Matthews and Julius Pepper to go free and know they can pass rush on almost every play, and maybe they can just have great games and then cost the Giants the win?
Yes. I definitely think that's possible.
So, yeah, maybe they can't stop the pass, but when they know the other team's going to pass, maybe it's going to let them be able to let those guys loose and they can have a great game.
Could be.
Now, on offense, the Packers are not doing as what you would expect offensively. They're 29th right now in the league in passing, averaging less than 200 passing yards a game, which is weird when you think about Aaron Rodgers being your starting quarterback, Jordy Nelson being out there. The thing about Rodgers, though, is he's just so hyper efficient. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He might throw for 200 yards, but he could still have 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It never really adds up, his touchdowns and his yards. He's not a guy that's going to throw for 5,000 yards. It's just not really who he is.
Right.
He'll throw for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he'll have like a perfect passer rating.
Yeah.
Just the way he plays.
Uh-huh.
I don't think that's really anything to knock against them. If you watch the Lions game, he dominated. He had like 180 yards and 4 touchdowns in the first half, and then just kind of took his foot off the brake in the second.
Yeah.
So it happens. But right before we get off the air here, who do you have winning the game?
I have the Packers.
I do too. I think the Packers are going to win this game, and they're going to go to 3-1, and they're going to move on to Dallas the next week, and they'll be fine. I think that this Packers offense is going to get back on track. I think turnovers will be the key to the game.
I do too. Minnesota still wins the division.
Fair enough. I think that's going to be a close race. We'll touch on that as these weeks go by. But thank you all for listening. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. We are Inside the Trenches. I'm Lenny Ventimiglia.
And I'm Noah Adamek.
Come back next week. We might be back next week. Fall break is next week, so we'll see how our schedules look. But we're expecting as of right now to be back in the studio next week. If not, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. So have a good night. Stay safe.